Need You Tonight. Man, what a song, what a life it's had. I'm with the great Andrew Farriss of the phenomenal band INXS, and that's the story behind the song this week for the Tennessean and Tennessean.com. You know, there are important moments in your life, and a lot of people don't pay attention to those moments. So take me back to Sydney, Australia, and a cab ride that has something to do with this phenomenal song that had planet-wide success and still does.
Thanks, Bart. Yeah, I try to make this really simple. We needed some more songs on the record that we made. It was our 6th studio album for INXS, and we don't Kick, correct. The album was Kick. And so I thought, well, great, you know, we need some more tracks. And I was working on this thing at home, and I wasn't sure what it was. In Sydney, Australia, this was about 1987, somewhere around there. But I knew I was onto something. I was sort of sitting there, and it sort of sounded like, you know, this. I thought, you know,
that made it the greatest groove in the history of music, man, to this day.
Pretty simple. Thank you, Bob.
But aren't the great ones always?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I was going to say then, I thought, what is this thing? What is this thing? It was driving me nuts.
Because, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Because a lot of great songwriters, when you hear something like that, you think, is that somebody else's song? Did that occur to you?
Sure. I always think about that.
You do. The great ones, the great writers and the great songs, you go, because I think it comes from something universal, and it is somewhere in your inner spiritual being recognizable.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Universally.
Yeah. And so I agree with that.
Let's hear that groove one more time.
All right, okay. So I took this thing. And I was sitting there and I thought, I don't know what that is. What is that? And at the time, that wasn't exactly what was going on a lot on the radio either, and I thought it's kind of weird. Even 1970s sounding, you know, or something. And then I thought, okay, well, whatever it is, I like it. And then I began to realize it was important. So I called this cab to go to the airport in Sydney to fly to Hong Kong, where my good buddy, my friend Michael, who was the main co-writer in INXS with me, and the singer, correct, Michael Hutchins. And I went there to do some more writing with Michael, and he was my buddy. We liked hanging and stuff. So anyway, so I know the taxi's coming to pick me up, and then in those days it was tapes. You know, I had cassette, and then I had you know, a reel-to-reel or multi-track, whatever. So I'm trying to mix this thing down and put it on tape, thinking, oh, this will be easy. And the more I'm doing it, I'm going, hang on a minute, because I had a groove on a drum machine thing, and it was all getting a little technical. And this guy's like looking at me through the window, like, well, you know. And then I thought he was going to leave, and I had this moment of paranoia, and I don't leave, you know, because I knew it was important. I knew both things were important. I knew this was important, but I knew I had to go. So I was like in this frozen moment, you know, like something coming out of a cup that's frozen. And then I suddenly thought, I got to get out of here. Grabbed whatever I had, got in the cab, flew to Hong Kong. And that was unusual too. I mean, Michael was an unusual guy like that. He lived in Asia, you know. And that's unusual, especially in our field of work, you know. But I always admired that about him. Culturally, he was an interesting man. And so anyway, I flew there, got out of the cab, went straight to the studio, walked through the door. He's sitting there, and the engineer looking at me like, he goes, what do you got? So I pull this thing out, we put it on a tape recorder. He goes, love it. Sits down with a pad, and literally within about 4 minutes writes that lyric that everybody
Michael's
knows.
eyes went like that.
Yeah, but and then sang it. The first vocal. Now here's a really bizarre part. We're both in shock. I'm in shock because like he just writes this thing the moment I walk through the door. It even gets weirder. We take the tape back to Sydney, the multi-track of us doing this stuff. The band hears it. Chris Thomas, the producer, hears it. Goes, I love it. And a lot of that stuff that we did, we tracked straight onto the record.
Really?
That's how fast
from
it
that
happened.
tape.
It was crazy.
Wow.
It made no sense. It was like, you know, whereas other times...
Well, I will say this. A lot of musicians, a lot of artists, a lot of record labels, a lot of writers, I have an adage, don't get in your own way.
Yeah.
And if that worked and you got... people say, should I demo the song? Should I do a work tape? Songs are supposed to make us feel something, Andrew.
Yeah.
And if you got the feeling, why mess with it?
Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
I wonder if that cab driver ever knew how important that weight was. Did you talk to him about what you were doing? Or?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Well, wherever he is out there in Sydney, Australia, history knows him, man.
That's funny, though. Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of things riding around that cab. But that's true. But I've often thought about this more recently, too, is that people think they want to write a contemporary modern hit. But, even as we're talking right now, even though we're in the moment and we're talking, the moment we finish and we walk away, it's already gone.
Yeah. But I will say this, all of your songs, especially your hits, and especially that song, still have a life today.
Yeah.
I hope your royalty statements are reflecting this, but over the past decade or so, especially the past 5 years with EDM, do you know how much that has been resurrected in clubs? Everywhere you go, you're hearing that song.
Yeah, funky stuff, yeah.
So,
cool.
Well,
thank you.
We're all Richard Ford, Andrew Farriss, INXS. That's the story behind the song this week, Need You Tonight, for the Tennessee